Hello, everyone. Happy game day. Happy Saturday. It is Jack Veltri here for Gamecocks Central, and welcome into another edition of Before the Sandstorm with yours truly, as well as Kendall Smith, who it's 8 a.m., so we'll see if she's up. I'm hoping she is. She's hasn't texted me back yet this morning, so I don't know if she is up. I don't know if she'll be on. Hopefully, she will be. But we're gonna get the show rolling because it is currently 8:04 in the morning, and South Carolina is taking on the in-state rival Clemson Tigers at noon for the Palmetto Bowl, 122nd edition of this rivalry. And to be honest with you guys, I do really have to probably get going here in about 15 or so minutes. So we're gonna keep this one brief today. Going to keep this one short, straight to the point, give my final thoughts, predictions. Hopefully, Kendall will be along with us here shortly. If not, it's all good. All is forgiven. And it is just the last before the sandstorm of the season. So I was kind of hoping she'd be here, but I'm just joking. So I hope you guys are all doing well. Appreciate you guys as always. Real quick before we get started, just got to give you guys a quick talk about Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loan. So if you're in the market to buy a home or you need help with your mortgage, Clint is your guy to get in touch with. He will take you through the process step by step, clear up any confusion you may have, and get you on that way to buying that dream home that you've always had your eye on. So the number to call is 803-422-6797. The NMLS number for him is 71597. Or go to clinthammond.com for more information. And if you are watching on screen right now, whether it's live or sometime in the future, Clint and all the information will be above me here, right here. So awesome. Thank you, Clint, as always. Michael Ray Lynn checking in. Lenore's rushing line is 24.5. Do you think that is too low? I want to take the over. So the interesting thing about lines in college football is you always got to be cautious of them, especially when it comes to rushing for a quarterback, because sacks are included. If it were the NFL, I'd say take the over on the quarterback more times than not if they're a runner. But considering the offensive line has been better lately, I would say I would still take the over. I just think if Clemson's going to get in the backfield today, like they're going to try to, and get a few sacks, that could really derail Lenore's yardage in this game and make it a bit tougher. But I would take the over on that, Michael. So anyway, happy game day. Again, South Carolina taking on Clemson at noon, SEC Network. I will be there at Williams-Brice Stadium a little bit after 9 probably. So I'm here in a little bit. But some just quick thoughts on this game. Number one, I think for South Carolina, they're going to have to come out here playing like they have the last 2 weeks. And what do I mean by that? Because I'm talking about 6 of the last 8 quarters, this team has played really good football. Like we're talking like the 30, what was it, 31-0, or no, 30-3 at halftime against Texas A&M 2.5 weeks ago, who A&M just lost to Texas last night. So we'll see how that kind of shakes up things in college football with the playoff. I would imagine Texas A&M is going to host a home playoff game in Texas. My thought on the whole discussion there with Texas is, look, they didn't have to schedule Ohio State. They could have scheduled like Rice or one of these other random schools, and they'd be 10-2, and this wouldn't even be a discussion. And for those out there, they're like, oh, but they lost to Florida. Like, true, but also they have some really quality wins. Like we're talking like 3 of the best wins in the country right now. And yes, they also played it close against Mississippi State and Kentucky. But I think the one thing we learned from this is that if the committee does not put a team like Texas in, I get it, but 9-3 makes sense. But I would say this: like they didn't have to schedule Texas or Ohio State. I think that sets the precedent that you need to schedule cupcake games. But anyway, that's completely off topic, and we are not getting into the Lane Kiffin saga, as there will be hopefully a decision made today. So we're not getting into Lane Kiffin. We've talked about that plenty before. I think he's staying at Ole Miss. But honestly, after yesterday, though, with all the things that went down with Ben Garrett from OM Spirit with On 3, I would honestly wouldn't be shocked if he went to LSU now. But anyway, that is totally besides the point. Point is, South Carolina's played a lot better football over the last 2 weeks. Besides the second half against A&M, they've been really good offensively, playing a lot better. And you go back to this past weekend against Coastal Carolina. I know everybody's going to say it's Coastal. It's Coastal. Like South Carolina was supposed to do that. You're darn right they were supposed to do that. The thing I will say about that though is I think it hopefully gave South Carolina all the momentum it needed heading into this weekend. You're coming off the brutal loss to A&M where you blow a 27-point lead in the second half. You don't score a single point the entire second half, and you lose a real heartbreaker that honestly could have just ended your season right there. I mean, it already did in a way because you were not going to be bowl eligible. But the thing I'll say is South Carolina could have mentally checked out. They didn't have to, come out ready to go for Coastal. But the one thing you can't really criticize Shane Beamer for is the fact that he always has his teams ready to play, regardless of the moment in the season, regardless of whether South Carolina is bowl eligible or not. So he's always done a real good job of keeping his guys motivated, ready to play. And that's exactly what we saw facing Coastal Carolina. And I think the fan base also continues to show up and show. I saw there's supposed to be a sellout today for the Clemson game. So I'm interested to see what the split is between Garnet and Black. And then you get the Clemson crowd that typically travels pretty well to Williams-Brice Stadium. But all that to be said, South Carolina had a really good game last week against Coastal Carolina. Fans showed up in droves. I mean, it was for a team that was 3-7 coming into that game against Coastal, you wouldn't have thought that, right? So South Carolina got everything it needed, offensively, played really well, almost 600 yards of offense and 50 points. Your defense pitched a shutout, and then special teams wasn't great, but hey, William Joyce made another field goal. So, look, I agree with this that. So Shane Beamer is going to be back next year, regardless of what happens after this game with Clemson, and we'll see what happens after that. If South Carolina wins, loses, whatever, but Beamer is going to be here heading into 2026, which I think is a good thing. I think he deserves a chance to get this thing right and get South Carolina back on track heading into next season. Hire a good offensive coordinator, hire a good O-line coach, bring in some good players from the transfer portal, and you've got hopefully a better recipe for success next season. And Jeffrey Lynn checking in. I bet USC has averaged 2.5 turnovers against Clemson in the last 20 years. South Carolina needs a clean game. Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers on that, but honestly, maybe. I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I know this. South Carolina hasn't always been great offensively. Even when you go back to last year, the Gamecocks weren't exactly – if they didn't have Lenore Sellers, they're not winning that game against Clemson last year at Death Valley the way they did. So I think for Carolina in this game, you got to minimize your own mistakes, and you've also got to force Clemson into a few mistakes, kind of just like what you did last year when Cade Klubnik threw that interception to Demetrius Knight at the end of the game when Clemson was in field goal range with a chance to tie the game after 3rd and Sellers. So, I think – and this is also an interesting point brought up by Aiden. Thanks for checking in, man. I can't remember a time versus Clemson where South Carolina didn't have a stupid fumble or interception. And I go back to 2 years ago when South Carolina was fighting to go to a bowl game at 5-6 and ultimately did lose to Clemson at the end of the year. The first play of the game was a turnover on if I'm remembering correctly, I believe it was a fumble for a touchdown. And I'm pretty sure there was an interception thrown by Spencer Rattler later in the game. So you got to be careful with the football in this one. I think mistakes are going to come at a premium today, meaning they're not going to come in bunches, but you're going to have to win the turnover battle. You're going to have to make sure you're not giving the ball away. So for South Carolina, I think that is the biggest key in this game. The other things you got to look at if you're Carolina, I mean, you can't let Clemson run the ball in this game. Adam Randall, the wide receiver converted to running back, has actually probably been better than a lot of people may have thought. Quite honestly, he's been all right, but he's had over 600 yards rushing with another, I believe, 200 in the receiving. So he's getting pretty close to being a 1,000-yard all-purpose back. And honestly, considering the circumstances for Clemson, I would say that's pretty good. Now, I say that because you got to go out there and slow him down. If he gets going in the run game for Clemson today, like if he has a 100-yard performance, forget about it. Like that's going to open up the passing game for Clemson to really do whatever they want. And if you're South Carolina, I've talked to some Clemson people on this, like you want to force Cade Klubnik to have to throw the ball 30, 40 times in this game. If you do, I think that's a battle you probably win, and you probably force a few mistakes with the secondary and the defense that you got. The defense that I think is playing a lot better after that second half collapse against Texas A&M. But also, I mean, this game starts and ends with Lenore Sellers, right? And we saw what he did last year against Clemson. He was amazing, with the 2 touchdown runs that he had, some of the plays that he made with his feet. You can imagine Clemson's probably going to be a bit more prepared, I would say, when it comes to – they're going to come up with a better plan, I think, to try and not let Lenoris be Lenoris, right? They brought pressure last year. They brought the house a ton against him. They just couldn't wrap up and tackle. And that was the simple fact of the situation. So if you're Clemson today, you're probably trying to, still pressure him a ton. But what are you going to do on those tackles? Are you going to gang tackle him? Are you just going to wrap up better? I mean, there's a few different things that Clemson could do to get better results on that front. But I would definitely say they're still going to bring a ton of pressure. And if you're Lenoris, a lot of the sacks are going to be made to be out against the offensive line. But quite honestly, a lot of them are really just silly mistakes made by Lenoris not throwing the ball away. So hopefully he's kind of learned from that. No sacks last week against Coastal, played really well offensively. Best game of the year, I think, honestly, in my opinion. So you're going to have to force some mistakes by Clemson, but you're also going to have to limit your own. And that starts with Lenoris not taking these ridiculous sacks to turn a 2nd and 5 into a 3rd and 18. I mean, that's not a recipe for winning in this game. So, yeah, those are kind of just my initial thoughts on what South Carolina probably needs to do today to win this game. Some of it may sound cliche, but let's be honest, it's probably true. So here's a good question from Ross the Boss, 1986. How long do you think before Shane makes the OC hire? Well, he was asked earlier this week. I think it was Jordan Kay, my good buddy from the state, who asked the question, does Shane feel like he needs to make this hire before National Signing Day on Wednesday? And he said not really. So I know he wants to get this thing done quick. He's talked about that publicly a few times, and he wants to make this hire pretty soon after the Clemson game. The easy decision is to just hire or just to promote Mike Furry to full-time OC. We will see if that is the route South Carolina goes down. My thought on that is I still think, as of right now, I do think they need to go outside and look for somebody to come in and be that guy for the OC role. I think that you can't risk it all on just another in-house hire like you did last year with Mike Shula, even though at the time I think that was the right hire. The thing I will say about that is I think it would take a really good game from Mike to have a chance at this OC position. Like, I think you probably got to have South Carolina scoring in the ballpark of 30 to 40 points, and it's got to be like 400-plus yards of offense. So you're going to need a really good game against this Clemson defense to kind of be like, whoa, okay, this guy, night and day difference. And it almost makes you wish that South Carolina had just moved on from Mike Shula weeks ago, like they should have, not after the Ole Miss game. Like, to be honest, man, I think this whole firing probably should have happened when Lonnie Teasley was gone. Just kill 2 birds with 1 stone, essentially. I don't know what the weight was. The sample size was not good already, and you're trying to save the season. So I don't know. I think a bigger sample size really would have helped us really tell what Mike is capable of. Furry, that is, calling plays. But he's done a great job so far, and I think South Carolina got a bit too aggressive in that game against A&M in the second half, and people can say they got conservative, but if you get conservative, I don't think you go for it on 4th and 1. So I think for Furry, you're focused on this game, obviously, but you want the results to probably come along with it. So we'll see. All that, like, again, a long story short, I do think South Carolina is going to go outside the box on this one, and I would think this hire is probably not made until – it wouldn't shock me if we got an answer probably next week. I mean, honestly. Do I think it's by National Signing Day? I would say probably not. I would say, honestly, I'll say it's next weekend. How's that? I think pretty soon here we're going to see South Carolina get another OC, a new one at that. And it will be the – what is that now? 4th OC in 6 years under Shane Beamer, 4th full-time OC. So, and I see some of you guys like East Carolina OC John David Baker. Yeah, I mean, East Carolina's doing some really good things this year offensively. And I know there's also discussion of, does South Carolina keep Sean Elliott? I think they do. I think you honestly keep both him and Furry. And I think, honestly, I think Sean does deserve a chance to be the O-line coach. I think he's done a really good job. If Shane wants to go outside on that as well, then maybe you just go ahead and move him back to the tight end spot. So he's done really good stuff with the program. And yes, I agree, EXO. It would be terrible to lose both of those guys. All right, let's lock in some predictions for the day, since I don't think Kendall's joining us at this point. So it is okay. I'm sure I'm gonna get a text from her at 9:30 being like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like I overslept. And I'm just kidding, by the way. Like I have Kendall is awesome. So, all right, let's see. So, as I'm going on to staff picks, because I got to look at what games I decided to send everyone this week. I'm not off to a good start in staff picks. I picked Mississippi State this week, and I picked Texas A&M. Both of them lost. What surprise! I'm not very good. Oh, and I picked Arizona State too. So, all right, let's go with the game. Ohio State, Michigan, big game. Ohio State has not won this one. And I think I saw yesterday on the TikTok, like over 2,000 days. It's quite literally insane how long it's been. I see Ryan Day has kind of changed some things up to where you got Ohio State flying to Ann Arbor instead of driving there on a bus, which, okay, I get. Like, keep the routine what it is. Change it up a little bit. So I'm going to take Ohio State in this game. I just think they're too talented to lose this game. But also, I would not be surprised at all if Michigan won this game, because if Michigan wins, I believe they go to the Big Ten championship. So keep that in mind. Next game I'll pick from here is Vanderbilt at Tennessee. I've got Vanderbilt winning this game. I really like what they're doing. Clark Lee just got a 6-year contract extension. I think they're going to be able to flip Jared Curtis, the 5-star quarterback prospect that is currently committed to Georgia. But yeah, I'm taking Vanderbilt to win this game, finish the year 10-2, get a signature win on Rocky Top over a pretty good Tennessee team that won't be going to the playoff. But honestly, Tennessee will probably go to a decent bowl game, even at 8-4. So I'm going Vanderbilt. And then lastly, we got the Iron Bowl tonight, 7:30 p.m. on, 7:30 p.m. on ABC. So I'm going, in my heart of hearts, I was going to honestly pick Auburn. I just thought Auburn, the voodoo there at Jordan Hare, it's something about it. And this game's being played at night, like forget about it. But you got to go Alabama here. I mean, I'm going Alabama in this game. I just think, Alabama has to win to essentially get into the playoff. And if they lose, Kalen DeBoer, who knows what happens with him? He might go to Penn State. I mean, honestly, he still may go to Penn State either way. But I'm going Alabama in this game. Going to be a close game. We will see what happens there. So, yeah, and here's the interesting thing. Good comment here from Jeffrey Lynn. No way, Bama all day. And then this comment: if Vandy goes 10-2, how do you leave them out? I don't know, to be honest. I mean, it just depends on what the other teams around the country do. I mean, Texas beating A&M yesterday probably didn't help at all, but actually, it probably helps Vandy since Vandy lost to Texas. But I would say, yeah, I mean, it would be tough to leave them out at 10-2 on the year. All right, let's do the quick pick for South Carolina Clemson. Again, kickoff at noon on SEC Network from Williams-Brice Stadium. I will be there, back in the building after missing last week, though I still covered the game virtual from West Virginia when I was covering men's basketball. I've got South Carolina win this game 31-17. I feel very good about the defense. I feel good about South Carolina in general coming off of the last game against Coastal. I know it's Coastal, but still a very good game for the Gamecocks overall. So they got some momentum right now. Clemson's kind of just been this year. I was not impressed with the way they played against Louisville, really, at all, just watching them. And against Furman, too. Like, they almost had to bring their starters back in. So I know Clemson's done really, really well playing at Willie B over the years. South Carolina's not won at home in this rivalry since 2013. But if they win today, it's 3 of the last 4 years they've beaten Clemson. And that would be a nice feather in the cap for Shane Beamer and this team after what's been a disappointing year. So give me the Gamecocks to win 31-17, snapping a home losing streak here against the arch rival Clemson Tigers, winning their first one at home at Willie B since 2013. So that's going to do it for me. It is time to head on over to Willie B. We'll see how the traffic is getting over there, but hope to see you guys over there this afternoon. Again, noon, SEC Network on from Willie B. I will have all live updates and coverage along with my coworkers on GamecockCentral.com. So go ahead and check us out over there. And if you also want to follow me on Twitter, to go ahead and keep up with updates that way. If you're not subscribed to us, Jack T. Veltri on Twitter. Again, JCKTVELTRI is my Twitter handle. So go ahead and follow me over there. So for Jack Veltri, unfortunately, no Kendall Smith today. This has been Before the Sandstorm, final one of the season. Appreciate you guys following along with us all season long. We'll be back next week with our normal GC Live as usual. We'll talk about this Clemson South Carolina game. It'll also be National Signing Day, so we'll talk a bit about that. And yeah, we'll turn our attention very quickly to the off season. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Happy holidays, happy Thanksgiving, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.